All right, all right. Grace, mercy, and peace from him who is and was and is to come very soon. I'm certain. This is Rogue Diabetic, and welcome to the Digital Wilderness. All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to go ahead and watch this press briefing. It's already almost over, I believe. We'll just head back to the beginning. And watch it from the beginning. We'll record it. I might stop occasionally for some commentary. Feel free to chime in the chat. So let's see. We've got to find it now and share it. Here's an article. Oh, you guys can't see it. Never mind. It's called Forcing the End. It's a New Yorker article. It's about the red heifer. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I was kind of like curious about the title. The title caught my attention, Forcing the End. And I mean, it's obviously from a secular source, so most people don't believe that Jesus even existed. But I am kind of curious to see if this forcing the end, if like what their exact take is on it. So he's not taking medication for Parkinson's, according to Jean-Corinne Pierre, whatever her name is. All right, so let's get her up.
Happy Monday. It's going to be a great week. I have very long things, long toppers at the top. Just warning you all, no falling asleep, please. Okay, so we've gotten more strong economic news in recent days. On Friday, our economy created more than 200,000 jobs last month under President Biden's leadership. We have now created a total of 15.7 million jobs over the last 3.5 years.
Wow.
Yesterday, a record 3 million travelers were
that was all the
airports,
rebound jobs.
a sign that our economy is strong and Americans are back on the road for the summer in record numbers. Speaking of which, last week we sold 1 million barrels of gasoline to help lower gas prices ahead of the 4th of July, which saw the lowest gas prices in 3 years. And today, a new report from the Economic Innovation Group highlighted what the New York Times called.
All right, we're gonna have to close some more of these tabs, I guess.
A remarkable comeback under President Biden. That report found that communities that have been
Okay, so while this is buffering, I don't know if you guys have been paying.
Struggled under the last administration.
I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to this forming narrative or this ongoing narrative, I guess, of the Biden debate, and now all of a sudden everybody is like, oh, he's crazy, or he's like senile, he's a senile dope. We can't be
what Times called a particularly grim stretch under Donald Trump. But those communities are back under President Biden, with jobs growing more than 4 times faster than in the previous 4 years. Investment spurred by the president's Investing in America agenda.
But before the pandemic, African American and Asian American unemployment, or Hispanic American employment unemployment was at
benefiting
record
previously
lows.
left behind communities.
So
That's just some of the economic progress
all of the
happening under
jobs that were
President
lost
Biden.
under the
Watch
Trump
out for more
administration,
news in the
and not
coming
absolving
days.
it with any
Exciting.
responsibility. because
And next, I want to
someone
share
who was
highlights
complicit
from the
with it,
president's recent
but it was
schedule,
because
as
of
well
the
as
it was
looking
because of
ahead
the
to the
national
next
emergency.
2 weeks.
Okay.
So
Then
over the last 10
once
days,
the
President Biden has been
shutdowns, once they
hitting the
started to
road and
bring
meeting
everything back
directly with the American
online, which
people,
they did
as well as
slowly
continuing
over a
his
period
job as
about
leader of the
2
country. In
and
the
a
2
half
days
years.
after the debate, he met with supporters in Atlanta, Raleigh, New York, and New Jersey. Last week,
The
he
job
delivered
started to
remarks
come
on
back.
the Supreme Court, visited the D.C. Emergency Operations Center for a briefing on extreme weather events, hosted a Medal of Honor ceremony, and joined the First Lady for a 4th of July barbecue with active duty military service members and their families. Throughout the week, the president also spoke with leaders of the UK, United Kingdom, Israel, and the Republic of South Africa. On Friday, the president traveled to Madison, Wisconsin for a campaign rally. On Sunday, just yesterday, he held numerous events across Pennsylvania with elected officials, including Governor Shapiro, Senator Fetterman, and Congresswoman Madeleine Dean. He participated in interviews, including joining Morning Joe just this morning. And throughout, the president has engaged with elected leaders, including members of Congress, governors, and local officials. This week, President Biden will speak to national labor leaders of AFL-CIO, host the NATO summit to show the unprecedented strength of our alliance, hold a press conference, a big boy press conference, according to Justin Singh from Bloomberg, who's not here, but Josh, you are here, I see you. So that will happen on Thursday, and travel to Michigan on Friday for a campaign event. And next week, he will travel to Texas and Las Vegas. On July 15th, he will commemorate the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act at the LBJ Presidential Library in Austin, Texas. He will highlight the Biden-Harris administration's progress advancing civil rights and his vision to bring America together. On July 16th, he will address the 115th NAACP National Convention in Las Vegas, emphasizing the Biden-Harris administration's commitment to advancing racial justice and equity for all Americans, including Black Americans. On July 17th, he will speak to the UNOS annual conference, where he will underline the Biden-Harris administration's historic accomplishments, including lowering prescription drug costs for America's seniors, lowering the Latino uninsured rate, and creating a Latino small business boom. And finally, I just mentioned the U.S. is going to be hosting the 75th summit, the NATO summit, right here in the United States, obviously in Washington, D.C. this week. NATO is the most powerful and capable alliance in the world, and President Biden is proud, very proud, to have worked to strengthen it and also expand it. So with that, the Admiral from the National Security Council is here to take your questions on that.
Okay, so obviously the Biden's pushing back on this narrative that he should leave, that he should get out of the race. All these, I hope they're stocked up on meth or coke or whatever it is that they give him to keep him animated, because it sounds like he's got some a pretty busy couple of weeks ahead of him. So this will be interesting to see how this all comes together, because if you look at I kind of wish I hadn't closed my tabs from earlier today, but everything was like the only thing in my main feed about Biden was an AP story. But if you Googled things like Biden will drop or will Biden drop, everything was all about Biden dropping out, about coming under increasing pressure, as recent as yesterday, and I would imagine continuing into the day, about dropping out of the race. Now, we'll give this a second to load before we go back to the press conference, because I'm just kind of curious to see whether the narrative is shifting away from that now. I mean, because Because this morning, I mean, if you look like depending on what you searched, depending on what search terms you use, the narrative was still continuing to push forward into Biden's got to get out because he can't beat Trump. So now let's stop sharing for a second. Get. Oh no. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so we'll listen to this general guy. Oh,
I do have a few things to get through, so I ask you to bear with me. As Crane mentioned, President's looking forward to hosting the leaders from 38 different countries this week in Washington for a historic summit to mark the 75th anniversary of the NATO summit. This will obviously include the leaders of all our NATO allies, as well, including Ukraine, Japan, New Zealand, and the Republic of. Before we discuss the schedule, I just want to take a minute to discuss the content.
The Republic of Korea, the North, member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and it's a country in the South Pacific, Southeast Asia. It's a Pacific country.
Context in which NATO leaders will be gathering this week. For 75 years, NATO has served a vital role in protecting the American people and in making the world a less dangerous place. NATO is the strongest defensive alliance in history, and today it is bigger, stronger, better resourced, and more united than ever before, in large part due to President Biden's leadership over the past 3 years. He's worked hard to expand the alliance by welcoming 2 new members. Sweden and Finland has spent countless hours rallying the alliance in 2021 and 2022 to build a global coalition to respond to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and to provide indispensable support to that country. And I'll get more on that in just a second. The President has also strongly encouraged greater partnerships between the NATO alliance and friendly nations around the world, particularly in the Indo-Pacific, as you will see. And the President knows that the global threats and challenges that we all face, including from authoritarian actors and terrorist organizations, are inextricably linked. He has also encouraged our NATO allies to join him in making significant investments in our mutual defense and deterrence capabilities. Now, when the Biden-Harris administration took office, only 9 NATO allies were spending at least 2% of their gross domestic product on defense. 2% was the Wales pledge. That was the goal that every member of the alliance had swore that they would get to. Today, a record 23 NATO allies are at or above the minimum level, 2% of GDP on defense spending. More than twice as many as in 2020, and nearly 8 times higher than when the allies first set that 2% benchmark a decade ago. Now, just quickly turning to the schedule. Tomorrow evening, President Biden will welcome NATO leaders, and he and Dr. Biden will host a 75th anniversary commemoration event at the Mellon Auditorium. That is the site I think you all know when the NATO treaty was formally signed in 1949. On Wednesday, the President will hold his first bilateral meeting with the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, here at the White House. The President will also meet with the 32 members of the alliance at the Convention Center. And then later that evening, he and Dr. Biden will host NATO leaders for a dinner again here at the White House. On Thursday morning, NATO will hold a meeting with the EU and with NATO's Indo-Pacific partners, that's Australia, Japan, the Republic of Korea, and New Zealand, to deepen our cooperation. And then on Thursday afternoon, there'll be a meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Council, after which the President will host an event with President Zelensky and nearly 24 of our allies and partners who have signed bilateral security agreements with Ukraine, as you saw in Italy a week or so ago. After that, the President will hold a press conference, I guess a big boy press conference is what we're calling it, and take some. Now, we're working to also set up some additional meetings, bilateral meetings. The only 2 that I can speak to right now are with the UK Prime Minister and President Zelensky, but I have no doubt there'll be additional bilaterals. And as we get more fidelity on those, we'll let you know. Finally, as customary for summits the United States hosts, there'll be a Leaders, Spouses, and Partners program hosted by Dr. Biden. Now, if I could just quickly turn to Ukraine, because back to the context for what this meeting is all about, I think it's important to just do a quick update here what the situation is on the ground. Since the passage of the supplemental in April, the President has authorized 7 security packages to help Ukraine, including 5 drawdowns of munitions and equipment. The resumption of that U.S. aid has made a significant impact on the battlefield. Instead of the nightmare scenarios that were predicted several months ago about what we could see heading into the NATO summit, we've seen the situation stabilize. Ukrainian forces have successfully stopped Russia's attack north of Kharkiv, denying Russia the ability to take that city and limiting Russian gains to areas just across the border.
That's all the farther Russia has been. Okay, the front it hasn't moved. It hasn't moved since the first couple weeks of the war. I mean, barely, and back. But this idea that us giving all our guns and bullets to Ukraine and sending them money is somehow making us safer, or has stopped any like sort of Russian advance is absurd.
The Ukrainians have held the line in Chasiv Yar. They've held fast east of Pokrovsk, hardening their defenses and ensuring that Russia will not break through. And they've halted Russian attacks in Zaporizhia. Throughout these last 3 months, the Russians have attacked relentlessly across all those fronts. And the price that they have paid for the few meters that they have gained here and there has been extensive. Heavy casualties, destroyed equipment, disrupted supply lines, degraded morale. The people of Ukraine have yet again demonstrated that when supplied and when supported by the international community in the United States, they can hold off the largest, though certainly not, I think is clearly evident, most capable army in Europe. Their success is not just limited to the front. Ukraine put U.S.-provided ATACMS, the long-range strike missiles, to good use in Crimea, destroying Russian surface-to-air missile systems, command nodes, airfields. They sunk the last cruise missile-capable warship in the port of Sevastopol. And the Russian Black Sea Fleet has now fled Crimea in response. While it's been heartening to see Ukraine hold on in this critical period, we should not forget the grim reality. Russia continues to bombard frontline towns with massive and low-accuracy glide bombs and sending missiles at Ukrainian cities, including over just the past weekend, where they hit a hospital, a children's hospital. Russia has ramped up its campaign against Ukrainian electrical generation, depriving the civilian population of power and attempting to set the conditions to punish them over the fall and the winter. To strengthen Ukraine's air defenses and to help Ukraine protect its cities and its grid, the United States and several of our allies will have several big announcements at this week's summit. And the NATO alliance will announce significant new steps to strengthen its military and political.
Okay, so that's something that I had. There were actually now it's not. Now we're like going to for sure take Ukraine into NATO. I mean, did I hear that right? Now that's like fait accompli, or at least the Biden administration is representing that it is. I mean, that would be monumentally stupid. They would never be able to. I mean, if any of this was even real, if any of this is even actually real, which none of it is, that would be assuming that would be like, why would you do that? Okay, because obviously that's what Russia doesn't want. That's the bargaining chip. Okay, and if we take Ukraine into NATO, then we have no leverage to get them to withdraw, to end the war and go back to Russia. Right, and not only that, it makes it justifies their because they can claim that the reason why this is like preemptive to because they knew that NATO had eyes on Ukraine. Disastrous debate. That's like that must have went out on like a memo. New Zealand, Japan, South Korea. What's up? Say hi in the chat. Ukraine will be in the NATO in the future. That's absurd. That's like totally absurd. There's no way we should be doing that. Now, the thing about this is Trump won't say anything. Trump is just like he's like, hey, I never would have hated you as president. Well, you weren't, and it did. So now what are you gonna fucking do? You gonna keep sending them money? You gonna keep sending them all our military hardware? Are you gonna like support Ukraine's entry into NATO? How are you going to negotiate an end to the war like Trump claims that he does? Never get into specifics. It's just like, oh, that never would have happened. I'm a fucking idiot. Say hi in the chat. So once we let Ukraine into the war, into NATO, then we're obligated by terms of the treaty to send troops. What if Russia wants to join NATO or China? So this goes on forever. That's there's no. Okay, so they keep going back to this. We're gonna keep needling this guy about this the disastrous debate performance. That's like the entire fucking population of the Gaza Strip has been killed or displaced, like 99% of it. Okay, but that according to Al Jazeera, 3 million people have lived in Gaza at the beginning. To uh, Israel is such a fucking scum country. Dirty, filthy dogs is what they are. What they're doing is in defense. Okay, there's two principles that they haven't followed, like the two most important principles: proportionality and distinction. Okay, they're not distinguishing between civilian and military targets. They're just going in and they're fucking carpet bombing everything. Okay, they're already at 30. They're already at like it's over 50 by now because there's over 10,000 missing, and there's tens of thousands wounded. So those are going to die. So by the time this is all over, I mean the number of dead in Gaza is going to be astronomical. There was allegedly 1,200 people killed by Hamas on that initial attempt. So why don't you do something to see that it does? In He did. They are. So why don't you do something about it? The CIA director? What the fuck is the CIA director doing negotiating a ceasefire? Loony. Okay, it's obviously. Okay, that like makes it like for certain the one of two either will be in an actual war with Russia, okay, or this war will go on forever. Whether it continues to be a proxy war or not. And it probably, I mean, that's an escalation on our part, letting Ukraine into NATO. It's absurd. And then I'll certainly, once that happens, there will certainly be people who will argue and push us into actually committing troops in Russia. I don't know what, like, at a certain point, it's hard to say. Okay, so if Jesus is coming back soon, and I'm like talking, like when I say soon, I mean like before the end of the year, or even like before the election. then all bets are off, and then this is like then he'll put a stop to all this. I mean, it almost seems like with everything going on in the Middle East and Ukraine, that they're trying to draw the armies of the world to like a battle somewhere likely in the Middle East. They're trying to get all the people of the world to put all their to send armies to the Middle East or near the Middle East, because Ukraine is just a hop, skip, and a jump from Israel or Palestine, whatever you want to call it, Levant. And they've started a war in Lebanon, or they're getting ready to. Israel's gonna attack Lebanon. They're gonna invade Lebanon. So like I say, if Jesus comes back, I mean, obviously that's the only way this comes to any sort of reasonable resolution. But let's say he doesn't come back for like another 20 years or another 100 years. Like, he doesn't come back within the lifetimes of everybody listening. Does not come back within the lifetimes of anybody listening to this. Okay. So he doesn't come back for 200 years. Okay. So how does this resolve? Okay. I mean, I don't know. It either ends in a world war, or it continues on and on and on forever, and we just keep dumping more and more money into this, more and more supplies, until I don't know. this is getting spicy. Cerebral. The privacy answer doesn't like trying to protect the privacy of the doctor that gave the exam. So see, not just Biden. A lot of threes. I love that number 3. Okay, so apparently Biden is going to give a press conference. They've got it. And basically, the upshot on all of this is okay. So basically, this is like the upshot of what's going on here. I'm having a lot of trouble with buffering it, but I'll kind of give you guys a summary right now. So the president has seen a neurologist 3 times. He's not backing down. Okay, they're not signaling from the White House any intent or any indication that the president plans to drop out. Okay, they're very strongly defending that he's going to continue to be in the race and work for the American people, et cetera, et cetera. But the press corps is like pressing very hard the whole narrative that Biden is a senile old dope. And they're not making any suggestions themselves that he should drop out, but they're still like they're pressing him on. They're pressing the issue about whether or not he's like mentis competentis or whatever you call it, competent mentally and competent to continue as president, and whether he's got like what kind of what kind of doctors he's seen and what for, and et cetera, et cetera. So I would say that in general that this is an indication that the narrative, that the drop narrative will continue. Now it might, I don't know, but he's got a bunch of appearances and stuff scheduled for the next week, and then there's there's the NATO summit, and so I think it could be an interesting week. If he melts down, if he has a bad performance at any of these upcoming events, then he's probably done. But there was going into the weekend, it was a very strong indication that he was going to be forced out of the race by Democrats. And so we'll see if this breaks this week or not. It'll be interesting to see. Like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell. Tell me what you think in the comments. And I'm out.